I will say that there was a hilarious anecdote recently. I'm just gonna bring it up real quick because I don't want to misremember the details. Yes, so somebody says, I tried robbing a traveler while out on the road, but I didn't want to hurt him. I stole his shield and let him run away. But on seeing that the shield was low quality, I decided to give it back because I felt bad robbing him of his only possession. And so I misclicked and accidentally threw the shield at him, which was the only logical choice, and it hit his head and killed him instantly. 10 out of 10 adventure mode experience.
Beautiful. Things that can only happen in Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, you made it to episode 4, the final episode in this series, in fact. So it's safe to say that you're taking this whole Dwarf Fortress thing kind of seriously.
So before we tell the final chapter of our tale, I want to let you in on some of the community's slang. You see, every good subculture has its own lingo, shorthand for important words, or new words that add much needed context.
For instance, how about digger mortis, which is when you find yourself in a position where you can't dig anymore, usually because you've run out of pickaxes and you lack the resources to make new ones.
Or how about tantrum spiral? This is when something bad happens to a set of dwarves, and then they start to get mentally affected. Then it affects their fellow dwarves, their friends and colleagues, grumpiness spreads, and before you know it, the whole fort is miserable.
Orist. Orist is kind of the default name for dwarves in Dwarf Fortress. When you're talking about them on Reddit and the forums and stuff, it's kind of like Jane Doe or AN other.
Then there's clowns. These are part of HFS, hidden fun stuff. Basically something cool that's in the game that nobody talks about for fear of spoiling it. So instead of calling these things what they actually are and spoiling the surprise, the community calls them clowns. Also, the area they live in is referred to as the circus, and the thing that you collect there is only ever referred to as candy. The community is very good at keeping this secret, and I'm not going to ruin it here. But of all the words you need to understand in Dwarf Fortress, none is more important than fun. And the word fun in the Dwarf Fortress community has a very particular meaning. You see, the goal in Dwarf Fortress isn't to build the best fortress, to have the most dwarves and dominate the land. Oh no, you see, every fortress will eventually die, be it because of invading forces, disease, flooding, civil war, necromancers, or clowns. Your fortress will eventually fail, and it's that failure which defines fun. Fun is essentially losing, and losing is fun. Fun is the world throwing you a curveball you weren't expecting, turning your well-run fortress into a battle for survival. And it's through fun that players find out their mettle, live to fight another day, or lose with lessons learned.
Fun is like entropy, it's kind of unavoidable. And unfortunately, we can never quite predict when it's going to come.
So when we launched on Steam, Adventure Mode was not in the game. It was a coming soon little button that remained there now, I guess, for 2 years and 2 months, something like that. At first, you couldn't do anything. It was, we had to convert, just like Dwarf Mode, we had to convert one menu at a time. It was a text game, right? So we had the basic conversion had to be done. Fortunately, most of the graphics just came from Fort Mode because it's the same creatures and same environments and so forth. So most of it was already done in terms of graphics, but we had to get all of the screens converted and then certain standard, at least for like explaining controls. And we weren't doing anything like that before. So it's kind of like the same as Fort Mode. We had a small tutorial. The standard was basically to get it to where it was before in text. So no real major additions, which for Adventure Mode was a larger kind of question about, because Fort Mode is the larger mode of the game that's had more work done to it, and it has a game loop because you're stuck in this mountain and your civilization is sort of improving in this one location. And Adventure Mode is a sandbox RPG, like big sandbox energy there. So it's great for that, but for someone expecting Baldur's Gate 3, it's literally not this thing. There's not a story associated to it. But what we did do is to kind of get people started on that is we added a mode called Chosen Mode, where there's a bit of a little story, just enough to guide you to, okay, this is traveling, this is fighting, this is picking up objects and bringing them back to temples, kind of thing, so that you can have a little baby game loop and then be set out on, okay, now I can talk to people, maybe I can kind of form my own experience from there. I mean, there's a whole lot of strange things that are kind of little self-contained experiences, like I can pick up a form of poetry, write a poem, and go perform at the pub. And then people will kind of just yell, this poet's really lousy or whatever. And then, but if you were good at it or judicious during character creation and pick the right kind of skills and attributes and so forth, or practiced a bit, you can start getting free drinks, stuff like that, And it's just a little kind of way to experience, like, what was this town like that was sending trade caravans to my last fortress. And we have a pretty complicated map generator for human towns that cannot be seen in Fortress mode. It's completely separate from Fortress mode. And then you can walk like through the sewers. You can walk into like little towers and into taverns, libraries, every place of business. Like the biggest towns have about 10,000 people and maybe 2,000 different little businesses and so forth. And it's like, there's a certain shallowness to that if you don't haven't created all of the sort of subcultures and things that would develop in a town like that. Go to your retired fortress and retire there yourself, unretire your fortress, and there's your adventure as a little citizen, and it all works. Yeah, just have a unique and strange experience in the world of Dwarf Fortress.
How was putting together adventure mode just from like a workload stress perspective?
Well, a lot of it was on Tarn because it's just and the artists, because it's just completing the thing that was already there. I'm a real workaholic, and the fact that I haven't been able to do anything is really driving me crazy. We did have, like, Dwarf Fortress it has this sandbox. It doesn't need a plot, but it needs pieces of a plot that you can scramble together. And so that's what I had been working on right at the end, was these stories called Tales for Told that I'd written for the fans. I just got into this place where I'm just staring at the walls, and I really need to do something, but I'm getting there.
Zach feels restless because the majority of the work in adventure mode has been programming. In fact, it's been too much work for Tarn to tackle alone. So after the version 5 launched, the team brought on one of the QA testers, a prominent modder within the scene, to help support Tarn's work. And more than just implementing fixes to the game, she's done incredible work to optimize Tarn's code and make Dwarf Fortress run faster.
People were trying to tell me, oh man, it's an old code base by a solo coder, it'll probably be horrible. Well, it turns out an old code base by a solo coder who needs to communicate with his own future self is way, way easier to deal with than the crap I've dealt with, which is mostly open source stuff, and half of the people who contribute to open source stuff don't even think about other people at all. So the actual slowest part of the game depends on what's happening. If your game suddenly drops to 2 FPS and everything's horrible, it's probably because you have someone locked in the caverns or behind a door and they're trying to leave the site or whatever, and they're just pathfinding over and over again every tick. Every unit has to check every other unit to see if they're close enough to be checked for line of sight, and then to see if they're friend or foe. So I just set up an object pool for them and allocated them in the object pool, and that improved performance about 40% by itself.
So she helped a lot just with the things that people thought were impossible, like threading Dwarf Fortress. It's now a very multi-threaded game. And you can more reliably do 10,000 year worlds in world generation now too. Just generally fixing bugs, making crash logs work better, just all this kind of technical stuff.
Someone identified a crash in world gen, and I checked, and there was a crash if a demon leader of a goblin civilization read a book that made them think decorum is more valuable than goblins normally think it is, so they would assign a chef, and goblins don't eat, so the goblin chef would be checking some stuff that the game didn't and it would crash. I just find this sort of thing all the time. Like, I occasionally test things and find someone who's the poorest person on the planet because they just can't stop gambling. They can't stop gambling. They just do it all the time. Or, a necromancer who kept getting, like, arrested because they're extremely bad at plotting. They're just insanely terrible at it, and they kept getting arrested because the police officer kept catching them. They ended up getting married. The police officer, the guard who kept catching the necromancer. There's just so much. There's something new every time I look for things. It's kind of funny. That one I was just checking to make sure necromancer still worked with the Lua. That wasn't even the point. I just found that randomly.
While Adventure Mode's development continued, behind the scenes life did. Annie and Zach moved into a new home and added some new furry friends to the family. Tarn was on dating apps looking for companionship, but just when life couldn't be more ideal, the unimaginable happened.
I think it started off great, right? Like, we had this huge life change. Dwarf Fortress finally came out. It was successful. It changed our life in literally every way we could possibly imagine. We changed our life, and it, even though it really wasn't overnight, it was, 20 years in the making, it felt like overnight. And it felt like suddenly this, like, the whole world of possibilities was open to us. And then shortly after the game came out last summer, my brother got sick and got sick really suddenly and was in the ICU for 52 days and then unfortunately passed away, very, very young.
I'm so sorry.
And him and I were closer than you could ever imagine. We talked on the phone for hours a day. We would talk on the phone for like 3 hours and then he would be like, just come over. And we lived 5 minutes away from each other and then I would be there. And so he was a big part of my daily life and losing him just gutted me. I had made the decision to quit my job pretty quickly because we knew he was going to need a really long recovery. At the time, we thought that he would recover, and I wanted to be there for my sister-in-law and him. And so I had decided to quit, and then actually before I could quit, he passed away. And then I had this moment of like, okay, so what do I do? Do I go back to work? Do I do that? And Dwarf Fortress gave me the opportunity to even be able to make that decision, right? So many people in my situation had to go back to work. They would have had to have gone to do that to support themselves and support their families. And I had the incredible privilege of not having that while I was kind of navigating the early parts of grief. And honestly, it probably saved my life. Like, I don't know if we didn't have the freedom that Dwarf Fortress afforded us, I don't know if I would have made it through those first parts. Everybody's been so supportive, everybody's been so great, but it was such a profound loss that I don't know what that would have looked like if I had to try to balance my job and my career. And I'm really grateful for that.
How's your dad doing?
My dad is, my dad's, he's getting through it. So there's just me and my brother, and then our mom died over a decade ago. So it's just me and him now. So it's brought him and I a lot closer, although we've always been close. And Dwarf Fortress made it possible for us to build him a house. Because of that, he was able to retire, and that was something he didn't think he'd ever been able to do. So we're so grateful for the community for that. I come from a family of workaholics, so not working was a little bit of a shock to his system. And after we lost Robert, I was just like, we're not going to do this anymore, Dad. Like, you're not going to work yourself until I find you one day at your desk. Like, you're just, we're going to have to try to figure out a way to fast track this retirement. And we had a really good opportunity to build him a house on the reservation, and it worked out really well for everybody. And so he just moved in this month, actually. So he's really excited about it. And, life goes on. And that's the other thing. And that's one thing that a lesson that my brother, I hold from my brother, is that we can't really let ourselves get stuck in grief. It's important to feel it. It's important to go through your feelings and your thoughts and all of that thing. And Lord knows that I did that for many, many, many months. But there comes a point where we have to life is for the living. And if we if we kind of live it stuck because there's somebody who's no longer with us, my brother really thought that that's the greatest disservice you could do to the memory of someone. But, as my anger with the whole situation subsides, I realize that he was right. And, that's his gift to me is being able to move on from these really hard situations and to not get stuck in that grief.
Robert's passing had left a massive hole in Annie's life, one that was all but impossible to get emotional space from. The extra bedrooms in their new home may once have felt superfluous, but after Robert's passing, they invited his wife, Annie's sister-in-law, to come live with them. The home was now a refuge for these two women to mourn the loss of a husband and brother. In an effort to get some emotional space, herself and Zach decided to do something they had never been able to do before: travel. This also gave Annie's sister-in-law some space to grieve in privacy.
I think what I had wanted to do was basically the Australia one that was my bucket list, because I wanted to sail the ocean, because like an actual ocean instead of just the Puget Sound when we're commuting to Seattle. We had just got back from Australia. This is this tan. It's winter and I've got a tan, so that's what we have been doing. Taking a cruise up through Alaska, that was really fun. That was about the most incredible thing I think I've ever done. Seeing those glaciers collapse and stuff like that while you're in a little boat.
Sadly, grief is something the family has battled with a lot recently. When I texted Tarn to figure out where we could film these interviews, he suggested his mother's house. My heart sank when I read the message, wondering why he hadn't said his parents' house. And sure enough, when I turned up, I learned that Zach's father, the man who had originally introduced the boys to computers, had just recently passed away. Their mother was incredibly kind, allowing me to film there, sharing photos of her husband and the boys from their lives together. She preferred not to be on camera herself, and of course I respected her wishes. But there was someone else there, who I met on that day, who also preferred not to be on camera. But considering how long it took Tarn to find her, I think I should let Tarn tell this one.
Well, I went on to four different dating sites and put up pretty terrible pictures and horrible profile, short, and just kind of you have to work through like, well, what am I actually saying to people? When you go on those places, you have to suddenly be a bit introspective in different ways that you might not be used to. And so I wrote a little blurb about myself, and I met somebody.
Who is that person?
So that's Steph, my wife. Steph was in I think it's called travel mode.
Okay.
And she was traveling to Seattle, which I took as like, you're traveling to Seattle. And so I was like, when I messaged her, I was like, hey, you're still in Seattle? And she was like, well, she's like, I'm in Norwich in the United Kingdom. And I was like, well, okay. And we kept chatting. Yeah, we just went back and forth every day talking. And then you switch to texts or Signal or Discord or whatever. We ended up on so many different places. And then, video calls, and went and visited. We went to London. We didn't get up to Norwich that time. So I've never been to London before. I've never been to the United Kingdom before. And so the Tube, like it. Tube's a great thing. Mass transit that works. We went to a bunch of pubs and things. Yeah, I'd never been to. I'd never been to karaoke either. I've never done a lot of things, and it was a delightful time.
2 months after Tarn's visit to England, Steph flew over to Polsbo to meet his family and spend time with them. And a few months after that, Tarn packed his bags and moved to England. It could only be this way.
Steph has a child with a previous partner, so moving to America wasn't an option. In the space of just a few months, Tarn had not only lost a father, but gained a stepchild.
How do you find life in England?
I like it. I like it quite a bit. I like the respect for the zebra crossing. I like people say, all right, and I don't know what the hell's going on. But I'm getting used to it though. And like the chippies, of course. If you don't like a chippy, I mean, that you can't stay very long, so it's good.
We did visit Tarn and actually be the witnesses at his wedding. Then we saw all sorts of stuff. Winston Churchill's bunker, I think, was my favorite thing to see.
What's the movement like? Obviously, you've such great like family connections to this place and people you've been around for all of your life. How difficult has that been?
No, it's been really hard. I mean, we're still, even now it's 2025 and we're still adjusting like to the time difference by itself makes it really hard to even do remote work, right? And so we're, like I've got evening calls and that kind of thing that's complicated because I'm a stepfather now.
Right.
So it's just, getting all that stuff to work, we're still sorting it out. And also, just not being around it has an impact.
Yeah. So what is it like as a brother to not have him around as much?
Oh, well, it's I get sad sometimes, but it's I got my own life. It does feel a lot like when he was at Texas A&M and I was still up here in Washington, except that that's a little different because that was the most miserable time of his life. So.
Yeah, but for me personally, I'm still in the middle of this move, and that's exciting and ongoing. I'm gonna get a house. Yeah. Be living in England, in a house, doing dwarf stuff like a dwarfy Englishman.
I'll always be 100% transparent. It's hard. It's hard. You go from having somebody in your life you just can drive 10 minutes down the road to see. I think that what a lot of people don't get to see is the way that Dwarf Fortress has been developed. A lot of it is just organic conversation through Tarn and Zach. And it reminded me a lot of when COVID happened and we all had to go to telework, and you kind of lose that organic, free-flowing idea of like, oh, we should do this. Okay, I'll do that right now. So I think it's been hard, and also like they're gonna figure it out. Like everybody's gonna figure it out. Change is hard, and even when change happens because of like really fantastic reasons, it's hard. The three of us and now Steph are very close, and we always have been very close, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Like the extended family is here, and my grandmother died. There's a lot of tragedy, I just gotta admit. Like that's why, I hope this isn't too upsetting, but it's like my grandma died and she was kind of the matriarch of the family, but there's still like to visit my mom and stuff like that. It seems like Tarn likes to come over here more. But London is a great town. I mean, it's very quiet and very clean compared to American cities. So it is kind of fun to visit.
We're so happy for Tarn. We're so happy for Tarn and Steph. We're so excited for this new adventure for them. And at the same time, Tarn was a huge part of our life. I cherish those moments more than ever before. Because at the end, that's all we have. I can't take the Dwarf Fortress code with me. I can't take the money with me. I can't do any of that. But, I can take with me those experiences and those memories and the feelings of being with the people that I love. And that's what I want to concentrate on.
Usually when we document the development of video games, we do so long after launch, when the story of their development has solidified in the minds of its creators. But this is just another way in which Dwarf Fortress bucks industry norms. It's a story that refuses to end. It's a game these guys have been making for their entire lives, and they don't plan on stopping. In fact, if anything, after 5 years of arrested development, due to them trying to get the Steam version and adventure mode ready, they're more excited than ever to dive back in.
Yeah, well, it's a hugely kind of open expanse of possibilities now. This is it. Like I've been waiting for this for 5 years, and it's been that long, right? Been doing menus and scroll bars and graphics for a long time. Like all of the things that we were previously going to do before we went on Steam, we had these ideas like, okay, we're going to improve sieges because they're quite silly sometimes. We're going to do kind of some army stuff to tie that in with adventure mode as well. We have the creation myths and magic stuff that I talked about at GDC in 2016. But we also had the villain stuff that was kind of a lead in to improving adventure mode. But we also have this kind of map system rewrite and the embark scenarios for fortresses so that your fortress can be a sort of religious community or a military outpost and be understood as such by everyone in there. Right now they're kind of an eclectic mix of whatever you want to make. You can build more temples or build more military stuff, but the people don't really understand that that's what's going on, the dwarves inside the fortress. So just any number of things along those lines, and then you also are like, well, this is a graphical game on Steam now, and we have got graphics things to do.
That's what makes it this like present moment. Now that adventure mode is out, that's what makes this so exciting, because the promise is complete. We've released adventure mode, everything is coming together. But now it's like, that's nice for the crowd, especially the crowd that's already bought the game, but we need new stuff. The promise of new stuff is really what keeps us going. I think I'm going to get back into writing. Like I said, the Dwarf Fortress needs chunks of story to scramble together. So I think that's a hobby that I used to have that I think I'm going to get back into.
The apartment I'm filmed in is getting its last kind of junk. I got some junk that needs to be junked, and that's happening tomorrow. And then it'll be about as empty as when you were there. Because I wasn't a heavy investor in furniture, and it turned out it never quite came together. I did get a guitar in England. That's still probably not the last guitar, but I found a cracked classical guitar, so I could get a nice kind of discount on a very nice guitar that was used in like a guitar school, but it's all wood and there's no laminate on it, and it's beautiful, sounds beautiful, but it's a classical guitar, not a flamenco guitar, so I still need to seal the deal.
Whenever we do one of these documentaries, I'm always hoping to communicate some sort of lesson or skill, something that can be applied to other games in the future, or we can use to critique games we play. But the nature of Dwarf Fortress is that the things that make this game special are really quite unique to this particular game.
A pair of brothers who dedicated their lives to a single idea, an idea so large and interesting that it kept them creatively engaged for 20 years and beyond. A game that keeps evolving and getting better with every passing year. And a community of players who supported the vision of this game for decades and then came to the rescue of its creators and their families every time they needed it.
I think the reason so many of us love Dwarf Fortress is how it echoes our own experience of life, how little things can make a massive difference given enough time, how nothing truly great is possible without strong community, and how little control we have over the fortune we have in our life, be that good or bad.
But more than anything, I think it reminds us of how important stories are, not just as a form of entertainment or a way of communicating ideas, but as a way of understanding the world around us. This complex, scary, systemic society we find ourselves in every morning we wake up. Stories help us understand the world and the people around us. They allow us to communicate with our past, to come to terms with who we are. We view our own lives through stories, with joyous beginnings and melancholic ends. But they too are awash in the stories of others, and much larger stories about the people who came before us and those who will follow. Stories can be about real things, they can embellish the truth, they can even have mistakes in them, or they can be completely made up. But no matter what, stories are how we perceive the world, and Dwarf Fortress empowers us to flex that ever-important muscle, something not many forms of media can. Who knows what challenges face our heroes in the future? Hopefully not necromancers or clowns, but no matter what happens, one thing is for sure.
Stories come to an end, but life goes on. So whether in life or in Dwarf Fortress, get out there. Tell one.